Okay, so we're going to learn how to start weaving on our cardboard looms that we made last time. We're going to be starting up here at the top and then working our weaving down as we go. So I've already got my first piece of yarn. It's about an arm's length. I got it from the yarn area. And the first thing that we have to do is connect this piece onto our loom. So I usually start by tying it onto my first warp string. So I'm just going to lift this up, put my colorful string underneath it, and then I kind of make a little loop, kind of like cross it like an X, sort of like how we practice tying our knots. You start with an X, and then you loop this short part under through the hole, so it creates that little twisty part, and then when you pull your two sides, that twisty part closes to create a knot. Now the short part we don't really need. You can even tuck that back in the notch if you would like to. This long part is going to be what we start weaving with. So I'm going to go to the end of this long part, and I'm going to put this through the end of a plastic needle. Now these needles aren't super sharp. They're not really going to poke you if you're careful. And if you want to tie your thread or your yarn onto the needle, you can. I'm just going to kind of hold mine on carefully as I weave so that it doesn't fall off. But if you're having yours fall out a lot, you might want to think about tying it on. Now here's the fun part. We are going to start weaving on the same side where we tied our knot. So if you tied a knot over here, then you'd start on this side. But I'm over here. And this is the part that's going to look a little bit familiar. We're going to take our needle and we're going to go over the first yarn, under the second yarn. Over, under, over, under, over, under. And then we use our needle to pull that string all the way through. And then we push it all the way up to the top. It's really similar to weaving with paper. Now my yarn is on this side, so I have to go from right to left. So I'm going to go over, under, over, under, over, under, over, under, and then pull it all the way through. And then push it to the top. I'm going to do a couple more rows so you can see how it starts to look. Over, under, over, under, over, under, over, under. They'll start to get a little bit faster, too, after you do this a couple times. Over, under, over, under, over, under. And after a while, you're going to start to see that your weaving is starting to get a little bit thicker there at the top. Now there's a few mistakes that you can make when you're weaving. One mistake is you don't do the opposite pattern as the row above it. Now that might not make any sense right now, but I'm going to make that mistake so that you can see what happens. This time, instead of starting over like I'm supposed to, I'm going to start under, which is the same as this one up here. So I'm doing not the opposite pattern this time. Under, over, under, over, under, over, under, over. Now you might think that seems right. That seems okay. But watch closely as I start to pull this through. Oh, something weird is happening. It's undoing itself. So if you keep undoing rows of weaving that you've done, that's because you started the wrong way. Either your needle was over when it was supposed to be under, or vice versa. Maybe it was supposed to start under and you started over. So I'm going to look at this last one. This blue yarn is under the white string. So I need to start over, over, under. I have to do the opposite of the row that's above it. And if I do it the opposite, when I pull it through, then it's not going to undo itself. It's just going to catch right there so that it can't pull out. Okay. Also, as I'm weaving, I'm trying to be really careful not to skip any of my warp threads. because if you skip warp threads, that's going to kind of start to make your weaving look a little bit messed up also. So I'm just going to do a couple more rows, and then I think this blue yarn will be about finished. Let's see, I think I might be able to get one more done. Over, under, over, under. Yep, it's about used up. Now when you have only a little bit of yarn left, it's time to go get a new color. So I have already gone over to the yarn area. I picked a new color that's arm's length, and this is where we have to tie our knot that we practiced. So with the end of my light blue, I'm going to make an X with my dark blue, and then I'm going to loop it under and up, just like the first step of tying your shoes, so it creates that twisty part. Pull that just a little bit so that I can do it again at the top. Cross that, loop it under and up so that you have two twisty parts, and then pull all 4 of those strings at the same time. Once again, any knot you do that holds these 2 pieces together is fine. It doesn't have to be a square knot. Then I'm going to trim off these little short pieces so that they're not dangling off really long. I'm going to go to the end of my new yarn. I'm going to put my needle on again. And then I just keep on going like it's all one piece. Over, under, over, under. And when I pull it, it's going to kind of bump that knot through a little bit. Bump, bump, bump. There it goes. Just pull it through. Push it up. And pretty soon you're going to be weaving with your new color. Just like that. I'm just going to keep on going until I've used up my dark blue thread, and I'm ready to add a new 3rd color on. And eventually my weaving is going to get longer and longer and longer.